Thank you guys, seriously. I wasn't expecting the overwhelming support from this video, let alone to be doing an installment for the second game in the series, but here we are. I am extremely grateful for you all, and to be able to shine a spotlight on one of my favorite games of all time is an extreme honor. Now let's get these games back up on the store, please. That'd be awesome. I've heard your guys' praises as well as complaints, and I attempted to keep everything in mind for this ranking. So without further ado, let's dive into the video. When it comes to Marvel Ultimate Alliance 2, I'm definitely not as comfortable with this game compared to the first installment. I had to step out of my comfort zone for this one by playing this game on my little brother's Xbox in his room. Yeah, that old Xbox One I used to record the first ranking video didn't even last a month. My first experience with this game was actually on the PS2 version, which if you guys didn't know is a completely different game than the next gen or remastered version. The premise of the story is the same for both versions, but this one plays more like Marvel Ultimate Alliance 1. I got a copy of the PS2 game for Christmas, and wow, I don't remember a single thing from this version. I only played it once all the way through as a kid. I would end up getting the Xbox 360 version of Ultimate Alliance 2 a few months after I got the PS2 copy, and I had an absolute blast with it. I remember one thing specifically about this game, and that it was pretty hard. I had to rely on characters that had a healing factor to help me beat it on Legendary. Good times. The character selection in this game was very interesting, and while I enjoyed some of the inclusions, I was sad to see characters like Moon Knight, Silver Surfer, Doctor Strange, or even Ghost Rider not make an appearance in this game. Still, the inclusion of some characters like Songbird, the Green Goblin, Iron Fist, and even the reappearance of Jean Grey and Gambit excited me a good amount. The PS2, Wii, and PSP version of the game has a single character not included in the remastered version, that character being Blade, and many of the characters in this version of the game have a lot of their skills copied and pasted over from Ultimate Alliance 1. I won't be discussing those characters in this tier list video. I plan on making a separate tier list video for that specific version of Ultimate Alliance 2, so if that interests you, be sure to keep an eye out for it. We will solely be focusing on characters from the remastered version of Marvel Ultimate Alliance 2 for this video, which includes the DLC characters as well. Characters like Carnage, Psylocke, Juggernaut, Magneto, Black Panther, and Cable are all a part of the DLC for this game, and they will be included in this ranking as well as the base roster of characters. There are a total of 30 different characters that will be ranked, and speaking of the ranking, let's discuss the ranking criteria. When it came to the video I made for the first game, my ranking criteria was pretty loose and not as well defined as it could have been. I kept it that way due to how each character in the game could be viable in many different aspects of gameplay. I also had a heavy emphasis on discussing the skills of each character, and I forgot to mention certain things when it came to some characters like their unique grab moves, their basic melee attack styles, and more. When it comes to Ultimate Alliance 2, well, this game fundamentally is way different than the first installment, so the criteria will be slightly different, but I'll keep everything that you guys said in mind. First, let me start out by saying this. After playing through with almost every character in this game, they can be viable in their own way, other than a few bad apples. You can seriously put together a random team with any heroes and do pretty well if you know how to work them on Legendary mode. Therefore, there's going to be somewhat of an emphasis on whether or not I even enjoyed playing with a character. The mechanics of each character will be the main focus. I'll be discussing each of the following with each character, and I'll use Hulk for my example here. Number 1. What do they excel in? Characters automatically have a set spread of stats depending on how the game defines that character. I'll discuss the utility some characters have, like their locomotion, whether they can have like a healing factor or might thanks to their abilities, or skills that offer some sort of status effect or stunning effect. For example, the Hulk has high striking and body stats, but his teamwork and focus stats are pretty low. However, his utility is pretty useful, as he has an ability that can give him might, as well as abilities that can stun enemies. Number 2. How good are this character's powers, abilities, and fusions? Powers need to do either one of the two things in this game. They need to either be a really solid crowd control and high damaging move, or a really solid utility based move. There are some exceptions to this. For example, some characters actually have boost powers, and they usually are a very great addition to a character's arsenal. The Hulk has an amazing single target move that can also act as a crowd control move. He's got a few solid utilities to his moves, and he has a boost as well. When it comes to fusions, well, they're pretty tough to talk about, but I will try my best to discuss my favorite fusion types with each hero. Number 3. How good is the previously mentioned playstyle on this character? Some characters have some really solid melee movesets that are so very fun to use, or they have high focus and very solid damage dealing moves. and there are even some characters that have a good mixture of all of this. I will try my best to discuss what it feels like to play with each character. And number 4, how are they compared to other options? The Hulk may excel in striking and body, but how does he compare to other characters who also excel in this? For example, Spider-Man, Thing, Thor, Venom, and Juggernaut all also have a high spread on their strike and body stats. What makes Hulk stand out from them? When it comes to the tier list, we have 6 tiers. F tier is bottom of the barrel garbage. You can easily switch that hero out with anyone else and you'll be fine. There's the D tier. These characters aren't the best, but have at least one useful thing about them to where it doesn't feel right putting them in the F tier. With that being said, they aren't in C tier because they are a worse pick compared to other heroes similar to them. We have C tier. These characters compared to the ones above them aren't super great. They may be good characters, but it may just be a personal preference that I put them this low. We have B tier. These characters are pretty solid. They don't excel super high in everything that they can do, but they don't drop below either. We have A tier. These characters excel in a few of the previously mentioned talking points, or excel super high in one of them that I felt like putting them here would be a great fit. And then we have the S tier. These characters are either busted or excel in almost all of the previously mentioned categories that they so easily deserve a place right here. In this game, instead of gear, we have boost. And, well, this feature gives me an absolute headache. The boosts give your whole team a bunch of cool bonuses and whatnot, but the feature is just so poorly organized and implemented to where I didn't even try to bother figuring out the best boosts for each character. So I kept the same 3 boosts on for each character when I recorded my footage for them. These stayed the same when I was experimenting with each character, and were never changed when testing them for this video. Also, I want to discuss an advanced gameplay feature I'll bring up for many characters called block canceling. Block canceling is when you block or dodge during a skill animation. You can block during any skill you use in this game with any character. This is an important feature with many uses to it. Maybe you're second guessing whether or not you want to use a skill, but it has too long of an animation and you're in a sticky situation. Well, just block cancel. That's just one of the benefits. The main benefit is the instant stamina regeneration. When you use a skill, a character's stamina will go down, and you have to wait around 3 seconds before it starts to regenerate again. If you block cancel right as the damage number pops up for a used skill, or any time within the start of the skill animation, you'll cancel the move and your stamina will instantly start to regenerate. I didn't realize this was a feature until halfway through collecting the footage for each character, but I went back with each character that I already recorded, just to showcase some examples of their block canceling. I wanted to explain this now as I'll be discussing it with many characters and how it can make them very, very solid to play with. When it comes to the footage I showcased for each character, it was recorded during my playthrough of Legendary Mode. The damage numbers will be different for specific entries as all of my characters leveled up consistently throughout the playthrough. So try to keep this in mind when you see a character doing like 70 melee damage in a Latveria level, but another doing 100 in a level like the Convoy attack. The things I say about them should still hold up despite what level they are. Obviously some characters are better for certain situations, levels and whatnot, so I tried my best to make sure I tested characters in different environments than the one I just showed in the video. Also, please keep in mind that some characters' stats may be higher than their starting stats. As they level up, their attributes will get increased. Also keep in mind that some characters have abilities that give them attribute increases, which in turn gives them a different spread than their starting spread I discuss. And finally, many characters are able to perform their skills while flying. I didn't have too much of an emphasis on this when talking about characters who can do this. However, I think it's important to bring up here, as I didn't find it to make or break any character with flight. So, with all of that out of the way, let us hop right into the rankings. Number 30, Mr. Fantastic. Now this is a surprise to me. Mr. Fantastic is meant to be a high tank, high striking brawler. However, I found him to be quite lacking in his own department. His melee moveset is fun to use and it looks cool. You have a better reach compared to other heroes thanks to his stretchy powers, and since his striking stat is high, he can do some okay melee damage. However, it's just not enough compared to any other brawler in this game. His survivability can be high thanks to his natural high body stat, and he has an ability called Malleable Body that can boost his defense, as well as an ability called Bounce Back that gives a percentage increase to resist all types of physical damage, which is better than just a raw number. The percentage does a lot more. This is an issue I have with many abilities in this game. With that being said, you'll be surviving with him to do some of the worst damage in this game. When it comes to his skills, they aren't as broken as they were in the first game, and they just aren't sufficient enough here. His first skill, Dashing Wheel, can be upgraded to give him a defense boost, and that boost can be upgraded depending on how many pip points you have into it. Mr. Fantastic kind of relies on this defense boost as well. You won't be dishing out enough damage to knock enemies out quick enough, so they're going to stay on the map longer and deal more damage to you. So having this will be helpful. My main issue with self-boost in this game is how short they last, but since this is Mr. Fantastic's highest and most efficient damage dealing skill, you'll have this boost on for most of the time you'll play with him. His third skill, Extending Strike, is probably his next best option when it comes to his skills. It's an okay crowd control option, does alright damage, it can kind of be done at range. It can also have increased area of effect and a high chance to critical hit depending on how much it's upgraded. His other two skills, however, Windmill Spin and Elastic Smash, are not great at all. Windmill Spin has some sort of stunning and knocking back utility to it depending on how much you have it upgraded. But compared to other skills on other characters that can do this, well, you'll just be better off using them, mainly due to the fact that they have better brawling and skill damage output. It's useless against bosses since the damage is so low, and the main use of it is to stun enemies. Elastic Smash is probably one of the worst skills in this game. The damage is terrible and aiming it is a chore. With how fast paced this game is, wasting time trying to aim this low damaging attack just is not worth it. I've seen posts on forums talking about how you can't block cancel with Reed here, but I didn't seem to have that issue in my game. I was able to consistently when using some of his abilities, but keep in mind you can't block cancel his first skill to get the buff immediately, as the buff won't apply until the very end of the animation. Other characters that have buffs like this run into the same issue, so I can't dock points for that reason. When it comes to his other abilities, yeah, he's got a focus increase. He has an ability which gives him critical hit chance, which can make him do some impactful damage based on the rolling of the dice, but other characters have this and they are way better. His Elastic Mastery ability seems like it can be solid. However, like many other abilities that give the character the same melee damage increase in this game, it's not one to prioritize. In late game, the ability renders useless and minimal thanks to it giving you a raw number increase instead of a percentage. Look, compared to any other character in this game, Mr. Fantastic falls so short for me. In the previous installment, he was a beast, a lion I could say, but in this game he is more of like a kitten. He's cool to play as, his skills are really cool looking, but overall he's just too weak to prioritize as a character to even try, or to even have him on your team as an AI character. For these reasons, Mr. Fantastic is the sole character in the F tier. What a fall from grace. We're moving on to D tier now. There's some characters here, and while it's not many, these are characters I couldn't do much with in Legendary mode, and are quite lacking in every aspect of their playstyle. Number 29. Luke Cage. Luke Cage, a character who was really fun to play as in the previous game, but has some of the same issues from that game carried over into this one, and more. Luke Cage is very similar to Mr. Fantastic, as he's meant to be a high body, high striking brawler. But many of the same issues can be said for Cage. He has a 1-up on Mr. Fantastic as he has might, which many other characters have in this game, so it can't solely save him from being one of the worst characters. His survivability gets enhanced by abilities like Unbreakable Skin and Hard as Titanium, but even with these I still found myself getting smacked around with Luke. His best skill, Knockout Flurry, is a multi-hit, short range, and mainly single target focused, therefore leading to negative consequences when fighting regular enemies. The damage can be inconsistent as well. The upgrades allow for an area of effect increase as well as an increased chance for crits, but it can't save the skill for me. Ground Pummel is way too weak to justify the stamina cost. It has a terrible area of effect, even with the upgrades. The Hulk has a way better variant of this skill that's actually useful. Chain Strike is another move that could be useful if the damage was increased. You can use it at mid-range, and the area of effect isn't great even with the upgrade. It's kinda hard to aim properly, and even the stunning mechanic doesn't do much to make the skill viable for me. Throwdown is a self-buff. When maxed out, it can give a 15% damage reduction. However, it pales in comparison to another damage reduction self-boost from another character that can be applied to the whole team. The upgrades are pretty nice though, like being able to deflect projectiles and being able to resist all damage, making it viable enough to have it on Luke whenever you can. His conditioning ability can also help increase his low focus. When it comes to his fusions, I enjoy his clearing fusions, like the one here with Venom. Look, I just don't have much to say about Luke Cage. He's a brawler, but doesn't have great striking damage compared to other brawlers. Even with his street fighting ability, which gives him more striking than other similar abilities. He also has an ability that increases his critical hit chance. He's got all the tools, but it just feels like he can't capitalize with it. His moveset also feels really sluggish. The issue with this is that you're not getting enough damage with his skills, so how in the world are you supposed to damage anything sufficiently? Luke Cage has always struck me as a badass ever since my first introduction to him in Marvel Ultimate Alliance. However, in this game, he's a fragment of that specific character. He's weak, and you'll be better off using any other big character, or even any other brawler in this game. He may have a solid self boost, but his damage is lacking, and it can't save him from being in the D tier. Number 28. Venom. Man, they just can't get Venom right for me, can they? Venom in this game has, just like the other two heroes, a high striking and high body stat spread. The same issues apply for Venom like they did for previous entries. I'm about to sound like a broken record. Their utility lies in how you can web zip around the map, and how they have might if you put some points into their alien might ability, which you should only focus on putting a circle of points into, as the damage upgrade it gives you really falls off in legendary mode. With this being said, the other two characters that have web swinging and might are vastly better options, so if you want to web swing around and lift up giant trucks or tanks, well, just use those two, who I'll discuss way later on in the video. Despite being a brawler, yeah, Venom's striking damage is pretty lackluster. Their Vicious Claws ability seems nice at first, but when you upgrade it, you get a raw number instead of a percentage increase, leading to the damage you get from the ability falling off heavily in late game or legendary mode. You could combine Alien Might and this ability, and focus on upgrading both of them, to get more of a noticeable damage increase when you strike with Venom. This may be the way to go with him, since his powers aren't too great, which I'll talk about here shortly. Despite having a high body stat, I found myself perishing too much thanks to their playstyle. This can be counteracted, however, with abilities like Living Suit or Ravenous Hunger. Living Suit gives you a percentage increase of physical damage resistance, and Ravenous Hunger gives you health per enemy KO'd. This ability shines when fighting against a crowd of enemies, and can keep Venom alive if you're able to dish out the proper damage. But it really doesn't do jack when fighting bosses who don't have their minions to come help them during their fight. When it comes to Venom's powers, this is what really bothers me. Tendril Yank and Leaping Feast are single targeting moves, but Venom is best when he's fighting against a crowd of enemies. These skills just don't do much for me, and can leave Venom vulnerable thanks to how long the animations of them are. You don't have too much time to pull off these when fighting against a lot of enemies in this game, especially in legendary mode. Despite how high damaging Leaping Feast can be, the damage happens after a pretty long animation, so block cancelling is out of the equation. The same applies for Tendril Yank. You also get a damage buff if you use Leaping Feast and have it upgraded enough, which means you'll have to go through the long animation to get that buff. You can also get an upgrade that helps you regain hit points when using the move while rapid tapping, making it a utility to gain more health to add on to the high damage. It really is a trade-off that isn't worth it to me, but it does help with my negative complaint. Venom's first skill, Tongue Lashing, is a utility move. The tripping is nice and can help you balance the playing field as enemies are constantly thrown at you in this game. The damage is very low, however, and there's another character who has a similar skill to this that gets more damage, plus a pop-up effect. Venom's second skill, Symbiote Burst, is by far their best skill, as is a multi-projectile skill. It may be hard to aim on a single target, but consistently does good damage in a crowd of enemies. To upgrade their skills, well, you can put some points into Symbiote Mastery, an ability which when maxed out can give you a 30% increase to skill damage. If you don't have this upgraded, well, Venom's skills won't do much damage-wise. Venom also has an ability called Survival Instinct that gives you a focus upgrade, but the focus amount you get from this is small thanks to having to upgrade it twice to get 1 point of focus. It's pretty steep. It's probably not a good investment, but it's here. When it comes to Venom's fusions, I love their Collecting Fusion with Psylocke here, or their Strong Targeting Fusions. Overall, when you compare Venom to other options, he just pales in comparison to them. Venom's cool, and he's probably the most iconic Spider-Man villain, other than maybe the Green Goblin or Dr. Octopus. However, the game doesn't make him great at anything. They also just feel weak. Come on, we're talking about an extraterrestrial creature here that is attached to Mac Gargan out of all people. They may have solid survivability, but it all depends on if you utilize him correctly. Venom, sadly, gets a spot on the D tier. Number 27. Black Panther. Now this is a disappointment for me. Black Panther has a similar stat spread to the previous two heroes. I promise this is not on purpose. There are just better characters in the game that happen to have a high striking and high body stat spread. His focus is relatively low, which further reinforces the negatives I'm about to discuss with him. He's got a high body stat, but it really doesn't feel like it at some points. This could just be how enemies hit like a truck in legendary mode, but still. Some of his abilities can fix this, like Panther Technique and Vibranium Suit, giving you evading and elemental and melee damage resistance, which is very nice to have for a brawler. He has alright melee damage, but echoing my complaints with the previous two placements, there are just better options in this game. You can boost his melee damage with his Anti-Metal Claws ability, which increases his melee damage as a percentage. His lacerating strike ability is deceptive, as the wounding damage is pretty minimal once you get to late game status, but somewhat nice to upgrade if you have some extra points, and if you're also upgrading his anti-metal claws ability. This is how you'll primarily be playing with the Black Panther, since relying on his skills is not a great move. Rapid tap skills in this game just aren't great, and Black Panther's dagger barrage is no exception to this. Even with the dagger increase upgrades, the skill takes up too much energy to get the same damage output as any of those other skills. You'll be block canceling every 2 seconds to keep your stamina up. There are definitely better options in the game than this. His Fierce Flurry skill is hard to use. Yeah, it can do some solid damage, but you can't control where the flurry ends up. It's a very uncomfortable move to use and is definitely not a reliable option. There are some high pluses to it, however, like the increased critical hit upgrade or reduced stamina cost upgrade, making it a simple ability to spam when there are groups of enemies around. I like the idea of his third skill, Slicing Dash. The knockback upgrade is useful and the increased area of effect upgrade is great. With that being said, I found it to be somewhat lacking when it comes to damage output. There's also no protective shield when Black Panther is doing this move, therefore he's kind of throwing himself into harm's way just for little damage. While the animation from the startup of the ability is nice and does okay damage, the continuous slashes fall off damage wise. It's an okay crowd control move, I guess. Panther's Pounce is easily the go-to skill if you're playing with Black Panther. The increased chance for critical hits and area of effect makes it an even more powerful skill than it is without those upgrades. The skill can hit multiple enemies near it and is the best option for high damage in one skill use. Despite how weak his skills are, you can boost them with his Battle Mastery ability, which the percentage increase is welcome for any character you'll be using their skills for. Block canceling can't really help Black Panther as much as it could other characters. One move is a slice and dice rush attack, and another is one you have to wait out to get the best of it. The only use for block canceling is if you're attempting to use the low damaging energy daggers, or if you're spamming Panther's Pounce and can time the cancel. When it comes to his fusions, well, he does have a low teamwork stat, so putting some extra points into his Unity ability may be helpful. My favorite fusion with him is his fusion with Cable, which is a solid crowd control fusion that dishes out some heavy damage. Compared to other options, there are definitely better options for brawlers that have some actually viable skills, like Spider-Man or Wolverine, and especially Gambit. His skills just aren't super great in both departments of crowd control and high damage output. It's just better to use some of these other options if you want to focus on melee fighting, as they seem to have higher melee damage. Despite being the Black Panther, one of the coolest superheroes in my opinion, he ultimately comes up so short in this game. I wish I could like him more in this game, but ultimately, I don't. At least he's better than the characters before him. That's why he's at the top of the D tier. Okay, so that really covers the heroes I did not like too much in this game. With the heroes in C tier, they can be still viable, but ultimately it comes down to preference and comparisons to other characters similar to them. With that being said, let's move on to the C tier. Number 26, Daredevil. Daredevil has always been a cool character to me. I really enjoyed playing with him in a previous installment of the series, but in this game, he isn't exactly the best. Daredevil is a high striking and high body character. I promise this isn't on purpose. With that being said, Daredevil actually has a viable melee moveset and can dish out some quick melee damage. The game builds him up to be a solid brawler, and his abilities can make him potentially even better than some above him. His precise strikes and street justice abilities increase your chance to critical hit and increase the damage you can get with critical hits. Just outstanding. It doesn't just apply to his melee damage, but since Daredevil is a quick brawler, I had to mention it here. His survivability is also pretty solid, as he has his radar sense ability, which increases his chance to evade. To add on to that, he has an offensive skill that gives him a self buff that increases his chance to evade. So if you have this ability maxed out and this buff activated, well, he may not be getting hit often. Trust me, you'll need this. I've found myself perishing a lot with Daredevil thanks to his up-close and personal playstyle. He also has an ability called Martial Artist that increases his melee damage, but like other similar abilities characters have, the extra melee damage falls off hard by later stages in the game or in legendary mode, so it's not too notable to put points into. When it comes to his skills, well, his Baton Whip skill is one of the worst powers in the game. The damage is horrendously bad, and it's definitely a skill to stay away from. Radial Lash is a utility skill that can pop up many enemies near Daredevil, which is similar to Venom's Tongue Lash. The damage isn't too great, so you'll be using this to control the battlefield. The skill actually pops up enemies twice, allowing for more time to disengage if you need it. Daredevil's Fearless Dive skill is a great slamming ability that gives you the previously mentioned evade buff once you use it. You can't get much use of block canceling this move if you specifically want it for the buff, but if you time the block cancel correctly, you can still get the damage without the buff. The damage is alright, I wish it was a little bit more, but it's a solid crowd control option. And Blinding Bola is very similar to Venom's Symbiote Burst, as it can be a multiple projectile ranged option. I found it hard to aim, and the damage can be kind of funky and inconsistent because of this. Still, the bolas can ensnare enemies, making it useful to throw out some to get some quick hits in right after. You can increase Daredevil's focus with his conditioning ability, and his power damage with his weapon mastery ability. But both of these are pretty steep to upgrade, so keep that in mind. When it comes to his fusions, well, they aren't super cool, but his guided fusion can be useful. I'm saying a lot of positive stuff about him, but Daredevil finds himself in a C tier, so what holds him back? Well, to start, he can't do any solid boss damage. His playstyle is also very risky, and can lead to some quick deaths. There are also just some really good brawlers in this game that have better skills than Daredevil. His main usage is brawling against a big group of enemies and using his Radial Lash and Fearless Dive skills to maintain the battlefield. Compared to other options, you can honestly do better with other characters like Psylocke, Carnage, or even someone like Captain America. Daredevil would have been higher on this list if he could have done some solid single targeting damage. However, for what he is, he's alright. I'll put him in the C tier. Number 25. Iron Man. Yeah, Iron Man placing this low is still a shock to me, but let me explain. Iron Man isn't exactly great at one thing. He's kind of an all-round character in this game. He's got might and flight, so his utility is pretty useful. He can do some okay melee damage, even without the Crushing Strikes ability, which falls off in late game and legendary mode. He's got really good survivability thanks to his armor upgrade and adaptive defense abilities, giving him a straight defense upgrade and a solid damage resistance to the last damage type that he took. His powers are alright, good enough at least. Pulse Barrage has low damage and little use for it, as he has a better ranged option in Unibeam. Radial Pulse is a fun to use radial move that can ragdoll any enemies near Iron Man. The damage isn't great, which is the only downside to it, but it can be very useful to quickly knock many enemies down to ground pound them right after, or to just push them away from Iron Man, you do you. Rocket Punch is his highest damaging move and a solid option for bossing. However, compared to other characters and their high damaging moves, it ranks at the bottom due to those moves just feeling better to use, and the damage output that those skills have are a little better. Still, don't underestimate this skill. It's a pretty solid option. And Unibeam is a solid charging ability that does good damage from range. However, the main issue that I have with it is that the damage compared to other ranged options with other characters are just quicker. It doesn't help that you have to fully charge it to get as much damage as another beam move like Ms. Marvel's here, for example. He's got some abilities to boost his focus or power damage, like Concentration and Overdrive. Concentration's a really nice ability to get some extra focus. However, you can really block cancel with many of his moves. It shouldn't be a priority to upgrade, but it's still pretty useful to have. And Overdrive gives some bonus damage to his powers. For his fusions, well, he's got some of the coolest looking ones in the game, like the one he has with Wolverine, or the flowing continuous beam he has with Captain America. Gosh, I love that one. Iron Man is versatile, however, that's the main appeal of him. He isn't exactly great at anything besides maybe survivability, so he kind of falters because of this. Compared to other options like Ms. Marvel, Cable, or Magneto, or even any sort of all-rounded character like Deadpool or Thor, well, he honestly falls to the bottom for me. I wouldn't blame you if you say Iron Man is always on your team just because of how cool he is, because he is pretty cool. He can fit into many situations, but he's just that. He's not really great at much, which in turn keeps him from being a B-tier hero for me. He's in the middle of the C tier, and that's the best that I can give him. Number 24. Penance. Penance is a very high risk-reward character, who if you can nail his playstyle, you can get some of the highest damage in the game. He is definitely not a brawler, no, far from it. He's the first focus-based character on this list, and well, you'll definitely want to keep him at range. Why, you may ask? Well, his main playstyle requires you to utilize his Atonement ability, which gives you a crazy increase in damage depending on how low Penance's health is. This damage increase you can get can be drastic. This is definitely the way to play with Penance, and while his playstyle is hard to manage, if you can get within the health ranges here, you can do some stupidly high damage. His Bring the Pain and Kinetic Fist abilities are some to stay away from. They're both pretty dense to upgrade and quite useless. When it comes to his skills, well, Kinetic Bolt and Reflect Pain are my two go-tos with him. Kinetic Bolt does some solid damage from range, but if you are utilizing Atonement with Penance, this skill can do some of the highest damage in the game, especially if you get a critical hit with it. Reflect Pain is a cool self buff that you should try to have on at all times. Basically, it's like a Thorns type of move. If any enemy hits you, they'll be taking some damage back. Like many other self-buff exclusive skills, I wish it lasted longer. However, utilizing Atonement in this skill can be the difference between surviving with Penance or perishing. Now his other two skills, Radial Wrath and Agony Storm, can be solid, but risky. Radial Wrath is a radial move that can do some good damage up close. However, you don't ever want to go up close with Penance, so it may be useful when you find yourself in a sticky situation, but it shouldn't be your main go-to skill with him. And Agony Storm, well, I'm not the biggest fan of this skill, due to how long it takes for the skill to start, and the unpredictable nature of it. However, if you utilize block canceling, you can half the animation and still get the storm raining down on enemies. You can drastically increase Penance's focus with his Survivor's Guilt ability, as well as increase your critical hit chance with his Chaotic Aim ability. If you proc a critical hit with Atonement active, well, you'll get some stupidly high damage like I said before. Also, his Kinetic Mastery ability can be good to throw some extra points into, as it adds the extra energy damage to all attacks of Penance's, even skills. It may have a slight falling off in the later game or in Legendary mode, but at least it will be somewhat noticeable. It's not a priority though. When we're talking about fusions with Penance, well, I really love his guided fusions. Penance has the most unique playstyle in this game, and he can have the potential to do the most damage in the game if you can manage his health properly. However, in Legendary mode, keeping his health low without dying is a hard task. Utilizing his ranged skill, Kinetic Bolt, is your safest way to secure damage without dying. However, this was all I could really do with Penance. In other difficulties, he's pretty fun to play with and manageable, but I found it to be a chore to even play with him in Legendary mode. He's a very risky to use one-trick pony. You can kind of compare him to Green Goblin with the one-trick pony aspect, but at least Green Goblin has a less risky tactic to use with him, compared to Penance. Look, I think Penance is the perfect conclusion for a game with this Civil War storyline. His backstory is horrendously tragic and reflects the notions of self-blame and survivor's guilt very well. He's terrifying and his playstyle reflects this. I really enjoy playing with Penance in this game, but his risk-reward playstyle reminds me of how I feel about Wolverine in Marvel Ultimate Alliance. You can get better consistently high damage with other characters without having to be on the brink of a knockout. I wish I could put him a bit higher, but the C tier spot is a good place for him. Number 23, Juggernaut. I hate to start off on a negative for my favorite X-Men villain, but Juggernaut disappointed me a bit in this game. He's got a very high striking stat and a high body stat, but low focus and very low teamwork. He has Might, if you couldn't tell, if he puts some points into his Supreme Might ability, which also gives him a percentage-based melee upgrade instead of a raw damage number increase, making this skill super viable if you want to play with Juggernaut as a brawler. He has this Armored Fist ability, but the damage doesn't hold up in the game and on Legendary mode. However, if you're upgrading his Supreme Might ability, and this one as well, you might get a noticeable melee damage increase. Juggernaut's a tank brawler with less emphasis on brawling and more on the tank side, with abilities like Impervious Body and Crimson Armor backing this up. He's got 2 viable skills and 2 skills to stay away from. The viable skills are Ramming Dash and Earthshaker. Ramming Dash acts as his new and improved Bull Rush skill. I do have to say it's very hard to aim and steer around with, which makes sense because if it wasn't, this skill could easily be busted. It's pretty fun plowing through enemies with this, and even doing some good damage to bosses with it if you utilize block canceling. You can increase the area of effect if you upgrade the skill enough, and the last upgrade straight up gives you stamina for every foe you defeat with it. His Earthshaker skill does wonders. This is probably Juggernaut's best move, and it's a solid choice for one of the best crowd control moves in the game. The fact you can stun enemies with this makes it a utility, and if you upgrade it enough, the stomp can pierce through enemies. The kicker with this skill is how it can hit the same enemy multiple times, leading to some wildly high damage. If you line up the stomp right, you can knock out enemies with just one usage of the move thanks to this. It is an amazing skill and I absolutely love using it. However, the only downside to it is the area of effect. The stomp goes in a straight line forward, making it kind of hard to aim when there's a bunch of enemies horizontally in front of you. When it comes to the skills to stay away from, these are Drop Smash and Sidorak, I think that's how you pronounce it? Sidorak? I don't know. Drop Smash is sluggish, it's slow, and doesn't do enough damage to warrant the long wind-up. Even with the critical hit and stun upgrade, this move just is not worth it. And the same kind of applies to Sidorak Spin, but the damage is at least okay. I find this skill really hard to aim, and the radius of it is pretty minimal, making it a risky move to even utilize. His block canceling for his skills is pretty nice. As for his Ramming Dash skill, you can block cancel whenever and immediately gain the energy you use for the skill right back. And his stomping attack, as long as you see the first damage number, you can block cancel and let the stomp do its thing. His Destructive Glee ability can give you stamina per foe KO'd, but it falls off in the late game, and the same applies for his Mystic Mastery ability. Said that one a lot. For his fusions, I loved putting Juggernaut into a ball and running around crushing enemies. It's so much fun. He's also a prime character for many targeting fusions. Look, when it comes to Juggernaut, he's supposed to be a beast, but he doesn't really feel like it in this game. His striking stat is stupidly high compared to other characters, but his melee damage can be outdone by many other characters thanks to their abilities and skills. It doesn't help that he's also sluggish compared to other options like Spider-Man or Gambit. It'll be hard to perish with Juggernaut. He's got really great survivability. I believe he excels when you're throwing in some punches every now and then, and utilizing his ramming dash or Earthshaker skills. In this game, you could originally get Juggernaut if you pre-ordered it. For that status, I wished he was a little bit better than what we got. I can't help but compare him to his X-Men Legends 2 counterpart, as that Juggernaut was busted and amazing. This one is a little bit nerfed, but he's still somewhat viable, therefore he's at the top of the C tier. Now we are moving on to the B tier. For these heroes, they really could be anywhere within the tier, as they are all solid and viable at many things, or excel super well at one thing that I had to put them here. Number 22. The Thing. The Thing continues to be a solid addition to any game he's in thanks to his high damage potential and very high survivability. His body stat is his highest spread with a middle of the road striking stat. This means he may not be super viable as a brawler, but luckily his skills make up for this. He has might if you put some points into his fantastic might ability, and if you want to try to use him as a striker, putting points into fantastic might and his street fighting abilities can make him an alright choice. It's not super viable in legendary mode, but it's something to keep in mind. For his powers, well, 3 out of 4 of them are awesome. The only one not being too great is Jump and Slam. It's very similar to Juggernaut's Drop Smash skill. The same negatives apply to this one. It's slow and sluggish and doesn't do great damage. It can be useful to knock enemies back or pop them up, but that's really it. If you want some utility, focus on Concussive Clap instead. This is a quick to use move that stuns enemies near the clap. Its use lies in its utility, not its damage, but it's pretty quick to throw out. Clobber in Time is a solid self-defense buff, and when maxed out can give you a 25% resistance to all damage types, thanks to the first upgrade. It can also help you have all of your attacks bypass any enemy's resistance to impact. And Dash and Bash, oh boy. This is an amazing dash ability similar to Cap's Shield Dash. While I do prefer Captain America's version of this skill, the damage you can pull from this skill makes the Thing an excellent contender for bossing and dishing out damage quickly to a large group of enemies, especially if you utilize block canceling. Since you'll probably want to utilize the Thing for his high body, resistances and skills, well, abilities like Conditioning, Rock-like Skin, and Hard as Stone are musts to upgrade. The only issue is that Conditioning and Rock-like Skin are pretty steep to upgrade, but these abilities only enhance using a Thing and his specific playstyle. When it comes to his fusions, I really enjoyed using the Thing for targeting fusions. The Thing is a fun mix between Captain America and Juggernaut, and I feel like he does what he does pretty well. He's okay at crowd control and solid against bosses. He's not like a Hulk per se, but he's still a solid character to put on your team. The Thing is cool, I love hearing his quips, and he's probably my favorite member of the Fantastic Four. With that being said, he's middle of the road for me. His dash skill is outstanding, and he's got some utility with his hand clap and might, but other than that, the characters above him are just better. There's not many negatives, but no overwhelming positives. Therefore, he's at the bottom of the B tier. Number 21. Cable. Cable is always a welcome inclusion to any Marvel game for me. In this game, he has a solid stat spread, being middle of the road for everything, except he has a high focus. You may not excel much if you use Cable as a brawler, but abilities like Telekinetic Strike and Seasoned Soldier may help with this. He's got solid survivability thanks to his gravimetric field and battle-hardened abilities. When it comes to Cable, you'll definitely be using his powers in a more offensive role. Plasma Barrage is a rapid tap ability that actually feels kind of solid to use. With that being said, rapid taps are lame in this game, and his other 3 skills should be priority first with him. Gravity Pulse is a fun to use crowd control skill that can easily knock back enemies that are near Cable. And to add on to that, you can deal some solid damage compared to other radial crowd control skills like this one. Stun Mortar is a utility skill that ends up becoming a strong damage dealing skill thanks to its multiple projectiles. You can increase the amount of projectiles through each upgrade, and each of the mortars will stun enemies that hit it. The fact that it's a multiple projectile move makes it a solid choice in its own right, and it can easily be block cancelled as soon as you see the grenades, saving some stamina in the process. Particle Beam is Cable's highest damage dealing skill, and yeah, it's a great skill. It can pierce through enemies, therefore it makes it a great crowd control move if you can line it up properly. And yeah, it's just a great beam attack. It's quick to use, you can use it from far away, and it's his most reliable skill. With that being said, it can be hard to aim, as the area of effect is pretty low, so if you have a bunch of enemies horizontally in front of you, well, maybe using something like his stun mortar is a better option. On top of that, abilities like Weapon Mastery and Ascani Training only enhance the usage of Cable, and should be priority for upgrades. My favorite fusion with Cable is the Continuous Beam Fusion, easily. That's just such a fun one to use for me. Overall, you can make Cable a versatile character, or just hone in on using his skills. I will say he does feel kind of good as a melee character too, but keep in mind that's definitely not his strong suit, and there are better options in the game when it comes to brawling. Compared to other similar options like Iron Man, Magneto, or Ms. Marvel, he's a solid option out of all of them. Cable is very fun to play as and a worthy addition to the DLC character lineup. He looks sick, his powers are awesome, and overall, it's Cable. My only issue is how he seemingly doesn't have anything wrong with him, it's just that the characters above him are really, really good. So, Cable is an easy B tier hero for me. Number 20. Storm. Storm improves upon her playstyle from the previous game and can dish out some great damage, as well as manipulate any playing field all from a safe distance. She has a heavy emphasis on her focus stat, with low body and strike stats, but also having a high teamwork stat, which actually makes her a very solid option for your team if you want to utilize her tornado fusions, which are unique to her and Thor in this game, and is the best option when it comes to a crowd control fusion. Also, her team leader ability can give you some extra teamwork, making her fusions even more viable. Storm also has flight along with her many skills to help control the playing field. Skills like Gale Force, Funnel Cloud, and Hailstorm all have their uses on manipulating enemies or applying a status effect like Hailstorm does. My favorite skills to use with Storm are Lightning Strike and Gale Force. Lightning Strike is a staple of Storm's arsenal, and it's usually her highest damaging move. It's a safe and reliable option to pull this move out from range. You can genuinely do enough damage with this skill in this game to whittle down a boss's health bar, and not feel like you're not doing enough damage. Gale Force is such a fun to use move that has a wide area of effect. With one usage of the skill, you can ragdoll a whole line of enemies across the room or area you're in. It's so useful and really fun to use. When it comes to her abilities, well, Weather Mastery and Precise Aim should be go-tos to upgrade. Abilities like Concentration and Combat Rush may seem useful, but Storm already has a very high focus stat and can utilize block canceling for every single one of her moves, making these not exactly needed if you're utilizing block canceling correctly. And stay away from Electric Fists, you'll never use Storm as a brawler. Storm is a solid ranged focus-based character thanks to her skills. Compared to other focus-based characters in this game, my issue with Storm stays true. She's limited to being at range. Others like Iceman and Human Torch can fight up close, Invisible Woman is a good mix of fighting up close and fighting at range, and Jean Grey also excels at range, but she's just a way better pick compared to Storm thanks to her high damaging abilities. Storm is an awesome inclusion to this game, and so far she's been in every Marvel action RPG starting from X-Men Legends 1. This is definitely a better Storm than the one in Marvel Ultimate Alliance 1, and I really enjoyed playing with her in this game. It's just the focus-based options above her are better, and she's limited to staying at range to do some solid damage. She's a solid B tier for me. Number 19. Iron Fist. I'll say it now, Iron Fist is up here because of his healing skill. Okay, and a bit more. Iron Fist is a quick brawler with high focus and high striking, which is a stat spread that's amazing for this game. When it comes to his striking, it already has some high DPS due to his quick moveset, but abilities like Martial Artist and Fist of Iron, when paired together, can make somewhat of a noticeable increase to his melee damage, even in the late game or legendary mode. His survivability may be a bit lacking, however his agile technique ability increases his chance to evade, which makes him kind of similar to Daredevil in the way the two play. He also has a critical hit increase, thanks to his Precise Strikes ability, but no ability to increase the damage of his criticals like Daredevil has. Iron Fist's Dragon Fist skill is very similar to Luke Cage's Knockout Flurry skill, and the same negatives I have apply to this skill. However, it seems to feel a bit better damage-wise thanks to its critical hit chance upgrade, and is way quicker to pull off than Knockout Flurry. Radial Palm is a radial crowd control move that pushes enemies away from Iron Fist. Like many other radial powers in this game, the damage isn't great, but the utility is there. There are many instances where you can use this skill, like trying to get a heal off, but there are too many enemies around you, so you push them away and pull off the heal move. Eagle's Dive is another skill that's lacking in damage, but the crowd control option is there. It's a vertical slam that can push back enemies. Yeah, it's a similar skill to the previous one, it's kinda lame. Iron Fist rocks because of his healing hand skill. It's the only healing skill in the game, and can heal the team a great amount depending on how much you have the skill upgraded. The healing animation is long, however you can block cancel in the middle of the animation when the healing actually happens to get some quick heals in. Keep in mind, stamina regenerates if you block cancel in the middle of a skill, so you can just straight up heal a good amount over and over again. This is pretty game changing and can pretty much lead to your team being at top health at all times if you can manage this properly. It's also really cool to note that Iron Fist has an ability called Focused Chi to increase his focus, leading to more healing potential, which is awesome. Iron Fist has some awesome guided fusions, like this one with Carnage here, and he can even be placed in a ball with some characters. His Hero for Hire ability allows him to get a teamwork increase as well, leading to more damage and more fun with his guided fusions. Iron Fist may not be the best damage dealer in the game, he definitely isn't rightfully equipped to take on a boss, but he is a must to have on your team because of this healing skill. My main issue with him is that he has two very similar skills with very similar negatives, which shortens his skill damage potential, mainly because his fourth skill is a healing skill. For your best offensive skill option, Dragon Fist is really the only way to go. This makes you more inclined to use him as a brawler who has a pretty quick moveset, who can also heal your team on the go, which is the main use for Iron Fist. It's a very much needed one in a game where health drains as much as the amount of enemies you'll have on the screen. While you may get more damage out of a similar character like Spider-Man, Iron Fist's heal skill boosts him up to the middle of the B tier. Number 18. Captain America. Captain America is a leader who can add benefits to your team and do some great damage to bosses and crowds of enemies alike. Cap has high striking, body, and some high teamwork spreads on his stats. He works pretty well as a brawler, and abilities like Precise Aim, Tough as Nails, and Duralumin armor all help him to stay alive or dish out some high damage. For some reason, Captain America doesn't have might. I thought it was funny to mention. I mean, he's a super soldier with super strength, but can't pick up a car like Magneto can, you know? I don't know. It's just weird. Cap's skills, however, make up for this random inclusion of not giving him might. Shield Throw is Cap's only ranged option. It can stun enemies, but isn't too easy to aim. It also doesn't do great damage per hit, but the utility of it is nice and it's kind of fun to use. It's definitely a downgrade from the previous game. Shield Swipe is a solid move that can hit multiple enemies at a time and pop them up. The range is quite limited, but it's a solid close-up move. Captain's Dash is the standout for me. It has potential to give you the highest DPS against bosses if you continuously ram into bosses with it. You can also block cancel with it as soon as you see the ridiculously high damage number. I know characters like Thing or Hulk have similar skills to this. I guess Cap's is more similar to the Hulk's. But the plus with this one is that when you use it amongst a group of enemies, it has a chance to hit more than the single target you're aiming for, which is a nice bonus to the very high damage. Cap's fourth skill is a resist damage buff. It starts out only being applied to Cap, but after the first upgrade, it applies to the whole team. Wait, what? This is an amazing boost and a worthy reason to have Cap on your team alone. The only issue I have with many buff-specific moves in this game is that they don't last long enough to be viable for me, unlike how they are in the first game. But this is no doubt something you should try to keep active, as this buff is pretty useful in many situations in this game. You can also increase Cap's power damage with his Shield Mastery ability, as well as increasing his focus with conditioning. Cap has low focus to start out, so if you want to use him for his solid skills, well, this is a must. Captain America is primarily a brawler, but has some skills you can use that ultimately makes him a viable option in this game. It's nice to have him on the team for that reason, as well as his damage potential with Captain's Dash and his amazing team buff. Compared to The Thing, who is a very similar character to Captain America, I feel like Cap just does more. When it comes to the other brawlers in this game, well, they can potentially do more damage, but Captain America is a solid pick. For being one of the main people associated with the Civil War storyline, I wish Captain America, could have been a little better, but for what we got, Cap is a solid character. B tier. Number 17. Deadpool. Look, I gave all of my praise to Deadpool in the first installment of this character ranking, and while he does fall off a little bit for me in this game, he is still a great all-rounding character who's as quippy as ever. He doesn't have one terrible stat if you invest in his many abilities that just boost his attributes. Best one ever is a flat-out all-attribute increase, which, yeah, it sounds busted because it makes Deadpool a powerful all-rounder. He even has an ability called Just Won't Quit that increases his focus, making his focus equal to his other high stats. Not to mention his hard to hit ability gives him a chance to evade, which is welcome to any brawling or all-rounded character. Deadpool also has a healing factor that can be upgraded, and he is the only character in the game who can teleport. Now that's cool. His skills are what makes me hesitant to put him higher, not because they aren't useful, but the damage just doesn't feel right with them. Bullet Barrage just needed some more damage and it would have been the best range skill in the game. It's still a very fun option, enemies can be flung around like it's nothing, the bullets can pierce through enemies and they can even explode on impacts, like come on, that's so fun. Bouncy Slash is probably my go-to skill for Deadpool. The damage is high, the move can hit multiple enemies if you aim it right, and it's a quick and efficient move. It can also be block cancelled consistently once you get the timing of it down. Telesplode is an okay ability for crowd control, the radioactive damage is a nice touch, but I didn't find myself using this move too much. Still, you might get some more use out of it than I did. Safety Dash, could be better. It's like Black Panther's skill, similar to this one. It's a risky move to use just to get some lackluster damage. You can increase the damage of Deadpool's skills with his ultimate power ability, but my complaint about Deadpool still stands. At least he has some cool clearing fusions where he jumps up in the air and airs out the location with his guns. Pretty cool looking stuff. Deadpool is also a solid brawler or striker. It's really the best thing about him as his melee moveset is quick and looks and feels so satisfying to use. Deadpool's attributes are the main appeal to him, and so is his high survivability thanks to his healing factor, and the fact that he's always a charmer when it comes to his one-liners. He may not be a great high damage dealer, but if you want an all-rounder who's a great brawler, wacky, and fun to play with, well, Deadpool's your guy. Deadpool is Deadpool, that's all I'm gonna say about that. I just wish his damage for his powers was a bit higher. High B tier. Number 16. Spider-Man. Spider-Man is a quick, brawling tank with utility to balance the playing field like no other. He has a high striking and body stat spread with a shocking, very low focus and middle-of-the-road teamwork. Spider-Man can web swing around, and he also has might automatically. You don't need to put points into an ability to get it for him. You can lift up cars or tanks or trucks at the start of the game as the webhead. His usefulness comes in the fact that he's a super quick character when it comes to his brawling. He has some great utility for his skills, as well as a solid crowd control and single target skill that does great damage. When it comes to his survivability, well, his spider sense is an ability you need to focus on. The evade chance just gets too high to ignore, and can make playing as Spider-Man safer and easier. His hard to squash ability seems cool at first, but it's very dense to upgrade. For every 2 circles you fill, you only get 1 body point. It's pretty lame. Spider-Man already has a high body stat, so this ability isn't exactly a priority. When it comes to his brawling, you can increase his potential damage with his critical hit ability, Spider Reflex, and while Lively Fighter seems good at first, the raw number damage increase instead of a percentage makes it a middle of the road choice, especially when you get into the late game as this becomes unnoticeable and minimal. Spider-Man is a quick brawler however, so maybe putting your extra points into this wouldn't hurt you. Now for his skills. Web Bullets is an alright starting skill, but with the upgrades they can be pretty useful utility wise. For example, hitting an enemy with the bullets can stun them, leading to some easy managing of the many hordes of enemies you'll fight in this game. Still, with how weak many rapid type skills are in this game, you won't be using this for its damage, but rather its utility. Get enough points to get the upgrades for this skill, and focus on putting your points into his other skills. Like Web Mace, which is his highest damaging move. The skill has 2 hit points, one on this swing around and one on the final slam. This skill is the webhead's best option for crowd control and even single targeting. The skill can be block cancelled after the second slam, leading to some quick stamina regeneration. Web Dive is another great crowd control move. When upgraded to a specific point, it can trap enemies in webs, rendering them immobile. The damage is alright, but the utility of trapping enemies is useful to maintain the battlefield. Block cancelling this is also pretty tough, and the timing isn't too easy. Web Yank does great damage on a single target with a high chance to critical hit them, on top of his ability that can increase his critical hit chance. The move takes a bit to pull off thanks to the long animation, but the damage can be worth it. It's also worthy to note that the skill can instantly yank shields away from enemies, which can make it very useful in the right situation. However, the long animation and lack of being able to block cancel makes it risky to use when fighting against a great number of enemies. The skill can be used on bosses, but the damage isn't too great, so you'd be better off using a skill like Web Mace instead, as this skill isn't exactly quick to use. All of Spider-Man's skills and their damage can be increased with his web mastery ability, while Perseverance gives Spider-Man the extra focus he needs to be able to actually, use his powers often. When it comes to fusions with Spidey, well, I love it when I'm able to get a guided web ball fusion, or when I can pull off a collecting enemies fusion. Compared to other options like some tanks, brawlers, or tank brawlers in this game, well, what makes Spider-Man so special and unique is that he's a quick tank character, which actually is a one of a kind in this game. Usually tanks are clunky and slow when it comes to their brawling ability, but not Spider-Man. Also, you're playing as Spider-Man. There's always a cool factor when it comes to that. He's the centerpiece for the box art for both games. I'm happy to say he holds up pretty well in this game and is pretty fun to use. However, his skill damage compared to others can be a bit lackluster. Still, he's a solid brawler and has some usefulness to him. And so, for that reason, he's near the top of the B tier for me. Number 15. Wolverine. Wolverine, you have redeemed yourself. I got some flack for my placement of Wolverine in the previous installment's video, and while my opinion about him still stands in that game, he's definitely a beast in this game. Wolverine has high striking, mid-body and teamwork, and low focus. He's got an interesting stat spread, but these can be increased thanks to his wondrous set of abilities, which is probably one of the best ability sets in the game. Want some more focus? Put some points into his conditioning ability. Upset about his mid-body stat? Well, he's got a healing factor, which I abused when I was a child playing this game on legendary mode because wow, this game was hard for me. If you want to use Wolverine as a strict brawler, which may be the best way to play as him, abilities like Wounding Strikes and Savage Fighting, when upgraded together, can make his melee damage increase noticeable. To add on to this, Feral Mastery increases Wolverine's wounding damage by a percentage. So you're telling me I can boost his Wounding Strikes ability as well as all of his skills, which all do wounding damage? That's outstanding. And to add on to that, well, you can even increase his critical hit chance with Precise Strikes, a high increase that is. And his fusions are also sick. My favorite fusion with claws has to be the Fastball Special, which is any targeting fusion in this game. I also enjoyed his Beam Reflection clearing fusion with Iron Man. He has so much going for him, so what keeps him out of the A tier? Well, it's how his moves work. Not the damage exactly, but just how the animations of each move are. Let me explain. Lunging Rage is a high damaging and quick slash move that's a multi-hit experience. Whirling Slash isn't super high damaging, but it can knock enemies back, and the area of effect can be increased depending on how much is upgraded. Dashing Flurry is another multi-hit high damaging move, and Claw Kebab is the highest damaging move of Wolverine's, but it's also a multi-hit. You see where I'm going with this? It seems like Wolverine's skills are all multi-hit focused, which can make his damage numbers inconsistent, especially if you get staggered, shocked, or knocked down at any point within the animation of one of his skills. If this happens, the move will halt, leading to the full damage not being achieved. However, he's quicker and more efficient with his moves, unlike other characters who have this issue with multi-hits, leading to this negative of long animations I have, not being applied as heavily to Wolverine, but it's still there. Another negative I at first had with Wolverine was his focus stat being really low. However, you can easily negate this by putting some points into his conditioning ability and utilizing block canceling. I think my biggest downside for Wolverine, yet again, is his health. I found myself retreating a lot or getting easily knocked by a large group of enemies due to this. This is more frequent with Wolverine due to his low body stat. This may just be a skill issue as I know he has a healing factor, and I think when it comes to Wolverine, you need to know when to disengage and when you can engage. When you compare Wolverine to another very high damage dealer, like Penance for example, well, compared to Penance's playstyle, Wolverine is kind of safer and more reliable. You can even compare Wolverine to high damaging and critical hit based brawlers like Psylocke and Carnage. While I personally enjoy playing with those two more, I wouldn't be upset if you have Wolverine above them. Maybe you're able to work with his skills and his low health amount a bit better than I was. Overall, what's keeping Wolverine from being higher or above his counterparts are the negatives I mentioned above, despite there being some workarounds for them. His counterparts don't have the issues he does, so he does take the highest spot on the B tier for me, but he is still a very, very deadly option in this game. Good job, Wolverine. Alright, welcome to the A tier, where every character here is pretty viable in their respective playstyle, and then some more. These are some go-to options for me when I play this game, along with the S tier, which we'll talk about later. Number 14. Magneto. Magneto in this game is my favorite variant of Magneto from all of the games he's been in before this one. He's got a weak stat spread, being high in just focus and teamwork, and low in body and striking, but this doesn't stop him from being the first entry in the A tier. Magneto is unique as he has might without needing an ability for it, while also having flight with a projectile deflecting shield. Yeah, that's pretty useful. You don't need a buff unlike Luke Cage. You can fly with Magneto and just deflect bullets or even rockets if you want. Speaking of deflecting, Magneto has an ability called Force of Will that can just give you a constant chance to deflect projectiles, even when you're not in your shield. This game has a lot of visual pollution, so projectiles are really hard to see sometimes. This ability can make or break your survivability with Magneto, so definitely make it a focus to upgrade. You won't get much out of using Magneto as a brawler. No, his skills are where it's at. As you upgrade his Scrap Blade skill, the number of blades Magneto will throw out per usage of the skill will increase. If you can get all of these blades to hit an enemy, well, it's wraps for them. It can be inconsistent if you don't get this to happen. However, the raw damage of each projectile makes it better than other characters' similar skills, like Daredevil's Blinding Bolus or Venom's Symbiote Burst. Repulsion Wave is a solid 2-hit radial attack that can pop up many enemies surrounding Magneto. The damage isn't massive, but the crowd control aspect is pretty awesome, and the 2-hit factor of it is pretty cool as well, as the first hit will pop up enemies, and the second will knock them back while in the air. So cool. The radius is upgraded with each specific upgrade, which can make this move very viable as a crowd control option. Rending Force is a stomping attack similar to Juggernaut's Earthshaker. While it doesn't hit the same enemy multiple times like Juggernaut's skill, it's still a good damage dealing attack that can be used at range to keep Magneto out of harm's way. You can increase the area of effect and critical hit chance with its upgrades as well. It is pretty hard to aim, but also really quick, so it'll be hard for enemies to dodge out of the way when you use this skill. Master's Hand is a goated skill. This can hit enemies behind shields, it does grand amounts of damage, and can be a great crowd control move as well due to its area of effect upgrade and increased chance of critical hits. It's just a really high damage dealing skill, and one of my favorites to use in the game. It's also very quick as well, I should mention. You can even get more focus with Magneto's concentration ability. With this and utilizing block canceling for the skills he can do it with, you pretty much won't ever run out of stamina with Magneto. And you could upgrade his Magnetic Mastery ability to get more damage for his powers. Block canceling can't be used for his Master's Hand skill, but you can use it for repulsion waves, and his other skills like Scrap Blades or Rending Force. I of course love the ball fusion you can do with the bigger characters in the game, as well as the great fusion crowd control move that can clear enemies within a use of it. Compared to other focus-based characters, Magneto is a step above them thanks to his great damage output and consistent usage of these skills. Magneto is great when you prioritize using his skills to manipulate the battlefield. He's got a solid damage output, and quite frankly, his skills are the coolest looking they've ever been in a game where you can play as him. Also, the fact you can deflect projectiles with him makes him unique. I don't think there's any other character that has an ability like this in the game, other than Luke Cage, but that comes in the form of a self-boost skill. Magneto is the best he has ever been in this game right here. He's made an appearance in many of these Marvel action RPGs, and for this one to take the cake is awesome. He feels so fluid in this game, so powerful, like he actually is in the comics or even the movies. While his damage output could be like some of the heroes above him, I'm actually pretty impressed with him in this game. For the DLC characters, well, he's one of the best. And with that being said, he squeaks out a spot right at the start of the A tier. Number 13. Invisible Woman. Invisible Woman is a solid option in this game thanks to her manipulation moves and shockingly high DPS. She has a weird stat spread, one that should put her lower, with low striking and body, mid focus, and high teamwork, but it can be altered thanks to her abilities. Concentration gives her more focus, which is beautiful because this is how you'll be utilizing Invisible Woman the most, with her skills. Precise Aim gives Invisible Woman an increased critical hit chance, while Crushing Strikes is dense to upgrade. It falls off in late game and in legendary mode, so try to stay away from this one. You won't be using Invisible Woman as a brawler. Her Kinetic Spear skill is just like Jean Grey's move. There's so much damage potential for this one, and it's really fun throwing enemies at each other and getting some solid damage out of it. It's an amazing single target move, and just like Jean's, if there's no enemy to pull in, a very quick beam will be shot out of the skill, leading this to being a great option for ranged fighting against bosses. Binding Field is useful to help control the battlefield and ensnares all the enemies around you, trapping them in a field of energy. The area of effect is very, very nice. Invisible Mind makes Invisible Woman invisible. You wouldn't be playing as Invisible Woman without this. And while the ability has a mind mechanic associated with it, the mind doesn't do jack. The best part about this is going invisible. When invisible, enemies won't target you until you hit them. Her best skill is Crushing Force. It's a chargeable attack with a potential for very, very high damage. It's kind of weird to aim at first, but once you get used to it, this is such a great skill. Not many moves in this game work vertically like this one. This makes this move all around useful for the whole game. Regular enemies, enemies behind shields, and bosses, you can use this skill for anything and do some amazing damage and have fun while using it. Not to mention, you don't really need to charge it to get the best usage out of it. Spamming this skill is honestly the way to go, especially if you bind them with her Binding Field skill. Nothing's getting away from this devastation. To get the most out of her skills, upgrading her Force Mastery ability is a great decision. You won't get too much out of Combat Rush, since block canceling with Invisible Woman is pretty simple with her moves, and the stamina per KO'd enemy ability type isn't the best in this game. When talking about fusions with Invisible Woman, I love her clearing fusions. Look, running around invisible as Invisible Woman, punching enemies in the face and getting some easy criticals makes her a pretty fun character to play as. Her real usage lies in her skills, which either offer great utility or high damage. Compared to her main counterpart in the game, Jean Grey, who has flight and might, well, I feel like you can get some more out of her, but Invisible Woman is still a solid option. She's an early entry into the A tier of the list. Number 12. Gambit. Gambit is as ferocious and deadly as he was in the X-Men Legends games in this one. His stat spread is awesome. He has mid-striking, which can easily be enhanced to make it high, low body, and a very high focus and teamwork stat. Gambit isn't as equipped as a Psylocke or a Carnage to dish out some melee damage. However, his charged staff and energy mastery abilities give him a boost to said melee damage. He's also unique as he has an ability called Object Charging that allows you to pick up an object, charge it with some of Gambit's energy, and throw it at an enemy to get some crazy damage. Yeah, it's pretty gimmicky, but it's actually really fun to use and does some viable damage. He also has another unique ability called Cajun Luck. It's a weird one, as you get a small percentage to get more orbs than you would usually, with enough points into this ability. It's not too noticeable, but it can be a lifesaver at certain times, especially when playing on Legendary mode. So this may be viable to put some points into, just don't expect it to prop so often. Also, precise aim gives Gambit more critical hit chance for any damage he deals. Now when it comes to his skills, Gambit is not lacking either. While Card Barrage is another underwhelming rapid tap, I still found it to be quick enough to do some okay damage. That's also in part thanks to the upgrades, allowing you to stagger enemies, to explode the cards on impact, and to increase your rate of fire. Radial Staff is an amazing radial move that actually does some great damage compared to any other radial move like it. This could be due to the extra energy damage added to the skill after the last upgrade. It can also pop up enemies, making its utility pretty useful in crowd control situations. I also found myself being able to do alright damage against bosses with it. Explosive Hand is a great ability that can easily be block cancelled, leading to the spamming of it and some high DPS. As you upgrade the skill, you'll increase the number of cards thrown with one usage of it, and the cards end up having a long horizontal line formation, easily hitting any enemy in front of Gambit. Oh yeah, the cards also explode. Sick. And 52 card pickup has a long-winded animation. It's a devastating skill that does some of Gambit's highest damage, and the area of effect is really generous. Therefore, clearing rooms of enemies with this skill is a cakewalk. You can also increase your focus with Gambit's concentration ability, which is very nice, especially if you're utilizing his rapid tap Card Barrage. Gambit also has some awesome guided fusions, like with Psylocke here. Overall, Gambit's a jack of all trades. He does shockingly good melee damage, and while it's not the best you'll see in this game, it's actually sufficient enough to justify him being a solid brawler. His skills are what do it for me, and at first I was hesitant with him in this game, as he was one of my favorite characters in X-Men Legends 2, but luckily he holds up very well in Marvel Ultimate Alliance 2. A tier. Number 11. Ms. Marvel. Ms. Marvel shocked me with how good she is in this game. Her stat spread is very well-rounded. Her stat spread is very well-rounded, but she has a focus in striking and body with a mid-focus and low teamwork stat. Despite her mid-focus stat, you can boost it with her conditioning ability, which at max upgrade gives you 30 total more focus. Are you kidding me? The same goes for her already high body stat. You can upgrade her cosmic body ability and max it, and at max it gives her 30 more body. Just wow. Not to mention her ability Impervious Body gives her an all physical damage resistance up to 15%. She also has flight and she has might if you put points into her Stellar Might ability. And to continue with her ability, she has a unique one called Absorb Energy, which whenever she takes elemental or energy damage, she'll absorb some of it into stamina. It's a cool ability, and while Ms. Marvel gets high focus thanks to her concentration ability, putting some points into this won't hurt. When it comes to her skills, they're all pretty solid. Warp Punch is a devastating punching attack that when upgraded enough, has a good chance to critical hit an enemy. The damage is also really nice, and getting up close and personal with Ms. Marvel isn't a bad thing, thanks to her high body stat and some of her abilities. Cosmic Slam is a solid radial vertical slamming ability, but the main kicker with this one is that it gives you an all-round damage buff if you go through the whole animation of it. If you upgrade the move more, you can increase the length of the buff as well. This buff is not to undermine, it's pretty noticeable and worth trying to keep on at all times. The skill itself is pretty useful for crowd control, but don't expect to get some of the highest damage with her using it. Now Radiant Beam is a go-to range move for her. It's what a range move should be in this game. It's a thin beam that can be fired quickly from afar. You can be a ways from an enemy and still snipe them with this, dealing sufficient damage to knock them out with at least 2 uses of this. The beam can knock back foes and pierce through foes as well if you upgrade it enough, making the skill a solid option for crowd control. It's also a solid boss damager, as the skill can be fired quickly enough to do some solid DPS from range. And with Photon Orbs, well, it's a cool idea, but if you're investing in Ms. Marvel's focus-based abilities, it may not even be needed. What it does is when you activate the skill, it will spawn orbiting plasma balls around Ms. Marvel that will continuously tickle foes. I say tickle because the damage isn't too great. However, the upgrades are where it's at. The first upgrade of the skill allows the balls to deflect energy attacks, the second increases the duration of the balls, and the third gives you stamina for damaging enemies. Also, block canceling can be utilized for her Warp Punch and Beam skill, but not worthy to do for the others. You can increase the damage of all of these powers with the Photon Mastery ability, which gives you a max 30% damage increase to her powers. Yeah, they made her a pretty solid character in this game. She has a really cool stomping, clearing fusion you can do with certain characters like Nick Fury here. Overall, Ms. Marvel is actually a great all-rounder whose best potential lies in this idea. She's got some solid brawling capability thanks to her high strike and body, as well as her abilities that can enhance this, and she has some amazing skills that are a great utility for her and do amazing damage. Not to mention the all-round damage buff you can get by using one of her skills. While she isn't the best all-rounder in this game for me, she still deserves a spot right before the top 10. Ms. Marvel is an A-tier hero. Number 10. Jean Grey. Jean Grey is a great alternative to Invisible Woman with the same utility and even more damage potential. Jean Grey has a really weird stat spread with her focus being middle of the road, her striking and body being low, but having a high emphasis on her teamwork stat. She has both might and flight, making her utility very useful, and her resurrection ability allows you to have a chance to revive a fallen teammate. No other character has an ability like this in the game, making it a must to have her on your team if you're playing through a tough level, like the last one. Her survivability isn't the best, but with Jean you'll be using her moves from range, which can help keep her alive. Abilities like Fiery Strikes and No Mercy are steep to upgrade and don't contribute much to her playstyle, so it's probably best you stay away from those abilities. When it comes to her skills, they offer some utility to control the battlefield and the enemies on it, while also doing some solid damage with those skills. Telekinetic Grip allows you to grab an enemy and blast them away for high damage. You can throw enemies into others, causing damage to the enemy you threw their best friend at. It's such a fun to use move, and the damage makes it a solid single targeting option. If you try to use this on a boss or when you're not targeting an enemy, well, it throws out a very quick ranged attack that can deal the damage you would get from throwing the enemy away when you telekinetically grab them. It's a nice touch and makes it very viable and powerful against bosses. Restraining Wave is a crowd control radial move. It can stun enemies and the area of effect increases via upgrades. This stun can reach a huge radius and it also lasts for quite a long while. It's such a great skill that I definitely suggest you use for regular enemy fighting. Pyrokine Blast is Jean Grey's best move and one of my favorites in the game. It's a high damaging fire damage move that's a crowd control option, similar to Storm's Gale Force, minus the Ragball knockback effect. Pyrokine Blast can be block cancelled if you time it just right, making this skill just outstanding when it comes to quick crowd control and damage. And the usage of the skill is quick and efficient, leading to spamming uses to get some fast DPS. Now, Phoenix's Fury has always confused me on how it works. It seems to hold captive enemies in a telekinetic field, dealing fire damage over time for how long they're in this field. The last upgrade gives you an increased chance to slow enemies as well, so once they fall out of the field, they'll be slowed. I found the damage to be lackluster due to minimal DPS, but it seems like that's not the main focus of it. Being able to ensnare any enemy inside of this is a nice utility to have, especially if you're playing co-op. It's important to keep in mind her Psionic Mastery ability increases her power damage by a max of 30%, which is a high amount for an ability like this. So prioritizing putting some points into this ability will help you get the best out of using Jean Grey. Combat Rush also gives you considerably more high stamina per KO than any other character who has this ability, so this might be another good option to consistently keep her stamina up. I love utilizing her Guided Ball fusions with bigger characters, and if you put some points into her Uncanny X-Men ability, the fusion damage you can get with her can skyrocket. Like I mentioned before, Jean is best when you utilize her powers and keep her at a safe distance. Compared to other characters similar to her, especially Invisible Woman, well, I found Invisible Woman's damage potential to be a bit lower than Jean's. They are also both really solid options for crowd control situations thanks to their utility and their skills. With her middle of the road focus stat, it'll be a bit harder to use her skills consistently, which is the main appeal of her for damage. Luckily, block canceling isn't too hard to pull off with her moves, other than her first skill, so utilizing this can help make up for the weird spread. Look, Jean Grey is a very powerful and fun to use character. The heroes above Jean in this list, well, I also just had more of a preference for them. This is because they all have something they do very, very well. Jean Grey is in the middle of the A tier for me, and right at the start of the top 10. This might be a hot take as most people consider her being one of the best in the game, and I still think she's a very, very solid option thanks to her control of the playing field and her high damaging moves. Number 9. Human Torch. The Human Torch stays consistently one of the best characters in his respective field. The Human Torch has a spread of low striking and body, but has some very high focus compared to others, as well as some high teamwork. You can use the Human Torch as a brawler. He has this ability called Fists of Fire, and if you have a good amount of points into his Flame Mastery ability, the damage from it can be okay, especially since for every circle you fill for the ability you get +2 fire damage to your melee attacks, unlike other similar abilities where you only get 1. It might be fun to experiment with, but definitely not a necessity. If you are going this way, investing into Plasma Field will give you some melee damage resistance, which is nice to have anyways. The Human Torch has Flight, and accompanying him includes some of the best 2 skills in the game. Fireball Barrage is a rapid tap, but the fire damage over time you can get with it makes it a bit better than some other rapid taps. The area of effect of the impact of the fireballs is nice as well. It's pretty generous. This is probably a skill you shouldn't really make a main focus, but it's here if you want. Radial Blaze is an alright radial crowd control move that can push back any enemies near Human Torch. The utility of this skill is the ragdolling you can cause, which is pretty fun, but the damage is not what you'd be using this for. Broken, busted, it's all over the place. Fire Pillar is the best crowd control skill in this game. If you guys remember my discussion on Human Torch in the Marvel Ultimate Alliance 1 ranking video, well, you'll know that his Inferno skill was an outstanding skill. The same is transferred over into this game, but with the amount of enemies you'll be fighting most of the time, the skill shines even more than it did in its predecessor. The only slight downside is that unlike in the first game, you can't pop up every enemy on screen with just one usage of this move, but unlike other characters and their pop-up skills, multiple fire jets can be used with one skill usage, making this a top tier crowd control skill. If you thought Fire Pillar was good, well, wait until you see the damage you can do with Flamethrower, one of the best boss melters in this game. The damage with this skill is just blasphemy. You can melt through enemies and bosses alike at a rapid pace. There's a slight downside to this skill as the range can be a bit lacking. However, with how many enemies in this game act, they like to bum rush towards you, even if there's a giant flame emitting from your hands, so this isn't too much to worry about. The skill also eats through your energy, but if you use the Human Torch's abilities well enough and utilize block canceling, you should be good. Speaking of his abilities, Flame Mastery boosts Johnny's fire damage. Since he does fire damage with all of his skills, this is just a straight win to upgrade. And if you're utilizing his Fists of Fire ability, you'll get a damage increase there too. Concentration gives you more focus, which is needed if you're utilizing Flamethrower, and it's just nice to have some more energy overall. My favorite fusion with the Human Torch has to be the Tornado fusion with either Storm or Thor. That's just so much fun to use, and the damage you can get with it is very, very solid. Overall, Human Torch is the worst of the 3 very similar characters in their playstyles that I'll talk about here shortly. However, that doesn't mean he's bad at all. He's still at number 9, keep that in mind. There's some slight differences in each of the 3 characters and how they play. However, this character type is one of the best in the game, as you can see from his high A tier placement for Human Torch. Go Johnny. Number 8. Iceman. Iceman narrowly beats out Human Torch in the rankings, despite them being very, very similar. Iceman has the same spread as Human Torch with low striking and body, but some very high focus and high teamwork. Just like the Torch, you can make Iceman a brawler, but it's risky business. You can invest into his Fists of Frost and Ice Mastery abilities to get some extra melee damage, as well as the extra cold damage, which in turn boosts that extra melee damage by a percentage, as well as the roll number. Iceman can ice slide around as his locomotion, which I've always loved how he can do this, it's so fun. But when it comes to Iceman, well, his powers are pretty outstanding. Rapid taps in this game aren't super great, however the utility of Frost Barrage is so nice. This rapid tap has the chance to slow enemies who are hit by any of the ice shards. It can be nice to have your extra pit points into this skill, but you should definitely focus on maxing out Iceman's other skills, like Ice Pillar, which can pop up an enemy and deal some great damage to any enemies near it. It won't work on bosses well, but it's still a great crowd control move. It's very similar to the Human Torch's ability like this, however you can't pop up multiple people with one skill usage. Freeze Beam is outstanding, as it can just freeze enemies who are hit by it. The beam is quick, the utility is nice, and the damage also makes it a great option at range. You can spam it at range and take out many enemies with like 2, max 3 uses of it, and safely use it against many bosses. Now when it comes to Spiked Punch, oh boy, I think someone did, I'm feeling woozy here. This skill is one of the highest damaging powers in the game. It's actually a great move for crowd control as well, as the skill can hit multiple enemies with just one usage of it. But for bossing, this is busted. It can decimate or drain a boss's health bar, it's quick and satisfying to use, and the DPS you can get with this if you block cancel is just the chef's kiss. Iceman's abilities are also pretty solid. You can increase all of his cold damage thanks to Ice Mastery, and since all of his skills do cold damage, this is a power damage increase. Precise aim is awesome as it increases your chance for critical hits, and concentration gives you some more focus. I would say upgrade Ice Armor, however the ability is pretty steep to upgrade. Focus on upgrading his other abilities. I love Iceman's clearing fusions as they feel strong and make him look like a badass. I also enjoy using him with Storm or Thor for the Tornado fusion. Overall, while he can be a sneaky brawler pick, you're best utilizing Iceman for his skills, which are all very, very solid damage dealers, and the freezing and slowing potential makes him possibly the best support character in the game. Speaking of which, when it comes to why I have Iceman above Human Torch, Iceman excels over him mainly because of his freezing and slowing utility. That's pretty much the only reason. I value Iceman's utility a lot more, which is very needed in a game like this. They both can do great damage to bosses, and are just very similar characters overall, so I don't blame you if you have one over the other. Iceman has always been one of my go-to X-Men, and it seems like in every game he's in, he's always one of the top tier characters. Freezing enemies and smashing them to bits whenever you can is so satisfying and awesome. High A tier. Number 7. Songbird. Look, I'm putting these 3 characters back to back to back because honestly they are all very similar and insane to use, but I crown Songbird as the best of the 3 as her damage is higher than the other 2. Songbird has a slightly different stat spread than the previous 2 entries. She has low striking and body, but has mid focus and very high teamwork. She can fly as well. When it comes to Songbird, well, you won't excel using her as a brawler like the previous 2. I also found her survivability to be a bit scary at first. Luckily, her resiliency ability can help Songbird stay up close and personal a little longer if you're utilizing her Shatter Scream skill, so putting points into this to get some melee damage resistance is pretty important. Speaking of her skills, let's get right into them. Decibel Barrage is a pretty solid rapid tap projectile move. When upgraded, it can pierce through enemies and even bounce off walls. The damage is a little bit lackluster, but this applies to a lot of rapid tap moves in this game. But this one is no doubt the most manageable to use thanks to the upgrades. Piercing Bolt is a powerful crowd control move that can pierce and knock enemies back when upgraded. It's easy to use and fun as well, seeing the amount of enemies you can hit with the skill, not to mention the damage is very great for a ranged move with a great area of effect on it. Sonic Pillar is another top tier crowd control skill in this game. It can pop up literally any enemy, even enemies that love to hide behind shields. They'll be up in the air within seconds. It's an easy spam ability as well if you utilize block canceling. With 2 uses of the skill on many enemies, hell, even just 1 sometimes, you can drain an enemy's health bar. It's a satisfying and quick to use move as well. And Shatter Scream, oh gosh, my ears, they're bleeding, it's too loud in here! It's one of the best damage dealing skills in the game and can melt through anything within the path of the skill. The only downside to the skill is the length. Since Songbird has a pretty low body stat, and this skill's range is pretty small, you'll have to put yourself within harm's way and stay as close to whatever you want to damage to get the best of the skill. With that being said, the enemy you're hitting with this skill may not even get a chance to get a hit in. Once you unlock this skill, it's an easy mainstay in your arsenal. The DPS is just too high to ignore. You can boost Songbird's mid-focus stat pretty high thanks to her concentration ability, and you can get even more damage with your power usage with the Sonic Mastery ability. Also, Combat Rush seems cool, but the stamina amount you get per enemy taken out isn't really worth making this ability something you should focus on. It can have its uses, however, since Songbird can take out enemies pretty quickly, and her focus stat is in the mid-range, so maybe put some extra points into it if you have some. My favorite fusion to do with Songbird is her Ball Fusion, which you can do with many characters in this game. Songbird is definitely not a brawler or an up-close melee damage dealer. However, she has some of the best skills in the game for either crowd control or high damage dealing. When we compare her to Human Torch and Iceman, well, what does she have that these two don't? And honestly, I think it's just a very slight preference for me. I love the idea of the Thunderbolts, so Songbird is such a cool inclusion for me in this game. She's unique specifically to this game as well, not appearing in any of the other Marvel Ultimate Alliance games, so using her in this one feels special. The reason she's not in the S tier is due to her easy potential to get knocked out if you don't act quick with her. However, I crown her to be at the top of the A tier. It's time for the S tier. Like I mentioned before we started the rankings, these characters are just some of the best options in the game, whether they're actually busted or broken, or just excel at everything they do compared to their counterparts. Number 6. Green Goblin. Look, Green Goblin is absolutely broken, but he's a one-trick pony. His stat spread is relatively weaker compared to the other S-tier heroes. He's got a low striking and body stat, but a mid-focus and high teamwork stat. His focus can be increased a great amount if you put your points into his Manic Madman ability. Goblin is ultimately a focus-based character with some solid skills, but has some abilities to increase his survivability like Hard to Kill and Goblin Formula. But I prefer to put points into Hard to Kill over the Steep to Upgrade Goblin Formula. However, if you've played this game, you know why the Goblin's in this tier. His glider's broken. Not only does it give you flight, which is the least important thing about it, you can actually damage enemies on the glider. You can fire out some machine gun rounds or fire some missiles. However, Green Goblin has an ability called Glider Upgrade. If you put all of your points into this ability, hop on your glider and hold down the machine gun fire button, well, anything within the path of the glider is gone within seconds. This goes for bosses. Green Goblin can take out any boss in the game within like a max of 10 seconds, not including immunity phases. I don't know why this wasn't balanced at all, but this ultimately makes Goblin an S tier hero, despite his skills not being super great. Pumpkin Bombs is the Goblin's best skill damage-wise, despite it being a rapid tap. It's tough to aim sometimes, but can take out enemies very quickly, which, hey, I'm all here for. Gas Attack is cool and its utility is nice. It can stun enemies near the cloud for a long while. Homing Swarm is gimmicky and I wish it did some more damage, but the homing damage is alright. You can just hop up on your glider, fly up, and constantly spam this ability, and it's a pretty fun thing to do. And Napalm Strike is a fun to use move where the Goblin's glider attacks with this laser beam, dealing solid damage to any enemy within the beam's path. You can also increase the Goblin's power damage through his Gadget Mastery ability, and it's a high damage increase, so it's worth it. His clearing fusions are solid, but I also enjoyed his targeting fusions. Look, I don't think I need to say any more. This may be a lame placement for some, but solely because of the glider, the Goblin has to be an S tier. His powers keep him from being higher up on the list, but number 6 feels like a really good placement for me. If you're having trouble with a boss, jump on the Goblin's glider and just fire away. Number 5. Hulk. Hulk was a recent addition to the S tier, but he so rightfully deserves it. I was considering putting him way lower until I played through the final level with him, and it was an absolute cakewalk. He has a high striking, high body spread with very low focus and low teamwork. The very low focus can easily be circumnavigated if you put points into his survival instinct ability, which boosts your focus by a great amount. Not to mention his already high body can be increased with his monstrous form ability, which gives a monstrous body upgrade. And he's got an ability called Impervious Body that gives you a percentage for an all damage resistance. Yes, please, the Hulk's abilities are outstanding. The Hulk has Might if you put points into his Unbridled Might ability. Speaking of that ability, if you combine it with Furious Fists, another melee damage increase, well, they both have high increases compared to other abilities that increase your melee damage, leading to some very noticeable melee damage. The Hulk may pack an absolute punch when it comes to him brawling, but his skills are what boost him to this spot on the list. All of his skills are amazing, like Raging Smash, which is a rapid tap smash move that does insane damage if you rapid tap till the end. It can pop up enemies, but the area of effect stays large, unlike Luke Cage's puny ground pummel move. So you'll actually consistently hit every enemy near or mid-range of the Hulk multiple times with this room clearing skill. Thunderclap is a deceptive range skill. Yes, I know, it's kind of crazy. The clap produces a stunning wave that can hit enemies from afar, knocking them down and dishing out some solid damage in the process. Not to mention the area of effect is very generous. The clap wave is horizontal, therefore any enemy in front of the Hulk will get hit by this. Dashing Tackle is a stupidly high damaging skill. The kicker with this is that the initial impact does really high damage, and after that there's an animation where the Hulk pins down an enemy, sometimes even bosses, and he beats them senseless on the ground, dishing out some more high damage. However, you can block cancel after you get the initial damage of the impact of the tackle, roll quickly, and immediately go back into another dash, rinse and repeat. This can decimate any boss in the game. And Hulk's boost, Gamma Roar, actually acts as a utility move too, stunning any enemy near the initial roar, while also giving Hulk a strength boost. Despite the high damaging potential Hulk has, you can add on to the fact that his ability, Rage Unleashed, increases the Hulk's overall damage by a percentage. Like, come on, I'm not making this up. This is very noticeable to make Hulk one of the best damagers in the game. The Hulk has always been such a cool hero to me. I guess my only minimal complaint is that he can be a bit slow compared to other brawlers that I have in the S tier, who have potential to do the same damage as him when it comes to melee damage, but it's a very small complaint. I absolutely loved him in the first game, and he's easily an S tier character in this one. Number 4. Psylocke. Psylocke is amazing. Psylocke has a high striking and body stat spread, with low focus and teamwork as well. One key importance of her survivability comes from her Shadow Technique ability, which increases her chance to evade by a high percentage amount. Evading is always a welcome ability, especially for an up-and-close personal character like Psylocke. Psylocke has a huge emphasis on critical hits, and with her Precision Blades and Death Blow abilities, well, you can get some of the most consistent high damage in the game with her when it comes to her brawling, and even skill usage. Precision Blades can increase her critical hit chance up to 30%, while Death Blow can straight up increase her critical hit damage. If you've kept tabs on a certain hero I ranked pretty low, you may be saying, Ace, but Daredevil has similar abilities and he's 26th on the list. Well, here's why. Psylocke's Katana Lunge skill is an amazing dash move that can hit multiple enemies, and it has solid damage. The critical hit chance can be increased twice, and it can do some wild damage if you utilize her Death Blow and Precision Blades abilities. I also have to mention it here, I love these forward dash skills in this game. They just feel so nice to use, and I have an absolute blast getting some high damage with them. Butterfly Kick is a dangerous multiple hit move that also does solid damage. The animation is pretty long and can put Psylocke in harm's way, but the area of effect can be increased twice, making sure enemies who are near it get hit as well. This is also a high damage dealer if you're able to safely pull off the multiple string of hits. Psionic Bolts is a utility stunning move, that's it. It doesn't have insane damage, but the utility of it is nice. The bolts can be increased per upgrade, causing many more enemies in front of Psylocke to be easily stunned, allowing you to slice them to bits thanks to her high melee damage output. Triple Strike, for me, was Psylocke's best move damage-wise. The area of effect is nice, and it's a quick and easy to pull off move. You'll primarily be using this one on a single target, and you'll usually take them out before they even get a chance to blink. Despite her powers already having some pretty high damage other than Psionic Bolts, you can upgrade the damage of her powers even more thanks to her Psionic Mastery ability. My favorite fusions with Psylocke are her guided ones and her big ball ones. And since she has an ability that helps increase teamwork like Uncanny X-Men, her fusion damage can be boosted because of this. Psylocke is a high damage dealer overall. She's great at striking, and her skills have great damage too. She can be a more than enough brawler thanks to her high striking and body, and she can even be someone you use skills with. and both options give her an insane damage output. Block canceling is so very useful with every single one of her moves. It's easy to do with each move, and in turn makes Psylocke even more deadlier than she already is. You may be utilizing her skills a lot, and since she doesn't have a focus increase ability, this is the best alternative to saving your energy with Psylocke. Comparing her to other brawlers that are also amazing with skills like Gambit, Wolverine, or another one I'll talk about here in a second, well, she almost tops the list thanks to her critical hit potential itself. Now this is Psylocke, one of my favorite X-Men. Her backstory is sick, her powers are so cool to me, and overall she's such a deadly striker and a worthy addition to the DLC roster that I have to put her in the S tier, right behind her very similar counterpart in this game. Number 3, Carnage. Carnage is my favorite brawler in the game. They have a striking and body stat spread, with low focus and teamwork as well, just like Psylocke. They also have some critical hit potential, just like Psylocke. Homicidal tendency will greatly increase Carnage's critical hit chance for any damage they do. Their melee damage is already high, but the potential melee damage they have, well, let me just say there's going to be a lot more than just Carnage, especially when you're constantly hearing this noise over and over again when playing with them. Now, his Bloodthirst and Battle Frenzy ability seems pretty useful at first, but they, say it with me now, fall off in the late game and Legendary mode. The same also applies to Piercing Tendrils. But hey, you can upgrade all of these if you want. You might get some extra melee damage, and it'll probably be noticeable enough. Carnage's survivability is awesome thanks to their alien reflexes and symbiote skin abilities, which give them evading chance and some extra defense. Carnage has a slight one-up on Psylocke because they have might and can web zip around because, yes, why not? They're already a sick inclusion to the game. Let's make them more sicker, I don't know. And the skills, oh man, I haven't even talked about the arsenal of their deadly skills. Lunatic Lunge is one of the best all-around skills in the game for me. It's easy to use, satisfying to use, does great damage against a crowd of enemies or a boss, and is also a safe option thanks to how quick it is, and how quick it can be to hit an enemy and get out of their damage dealing zone. With the first 2 upgrades of this, you can increase the chance of critical hitting with this skill, making it a deadly move to pull out when there's a huge group of enemies ahead or a boss in front of you. Symbiote Surprise is deceptively alright. I originally thought it was the best move in the game when I first started playing with Carnage. However, it heavily falls off later in the game. Still, it's an okay crowd control move that is very quick to use. The range isn't too big, however. You can spam this very quick, and get some solid damage. The negative is that if you do this, your energy will drain like crazy, and with Carnage already having lower focus than others, well, this isn't the best for him. Berserk Blade is a solid ranged option for a character you may be up close and personal with, that ends up making him somewhat viable from a distance. The first upgrade of the skill will stun foes, the second increases critical hit chances because, yes, they need more critical hit chance, they don't have enough. I found this skill hard to aim at some points, but it's definitely worth investing in just to give Carnage some more variety on how they can dish out damage. Slice and Dice is easily another top tier skill in this game. It's a savagely quick 3-hit combo that can decimate an enemy's health bar within seconds. You can upgrade the skill to get some knockback and an increased area of effect, which just makes the skill even better than it already is. My favorite fusion with Carnage has to be any targeting fusion with them. It's pretty cool to see the monstrosity that is Carnage being thrown at a boss or a group of enemies. Carnage is ultimately a brawler, but the fact that their skills are this good also makes them a viable skill-based option if you can manage their stamina. Block canceling works well for 2 of their moves, Berserk Blade and Lunatic Lunge, which already offer high damage up close or at range. Therefore, the spamming of these abilities can lead to some devastating effects. Block canceling doesn't work well with Symbiote Surprise, as well as for Slice and Dice, as it's a multiple hit skill, so you'll want to make sure you get all the hits in for the best damage output. When it comes to other brawlers, well, they don't really stand a chance. Carnage is a savage. They are quick and they have the best skills to back up how much damage they can do with just their melee moveset. The closest that comes to him is Psylocke, and the two are very, very similar characters. One difference between the two is the damage type. Psylocke focuses more on energy and impact damage with her skills, while Carnage focuses on crushing and wounding. Another difference is that Carnage gets more of a chance to get critical hits, thanks to their homicidal tendency ability, while Psylocke gets a 15% chance. However, Psylocke can do way more damage with her critical hits, thanks to her death blow ability. Ultimately, it just comes down to preference on who you want to put over the other, and I won't disagree with you. I feel more consistent with Carnage and gravitate towards them and their moveset. I mean, they're my absolute favorite Spider-Man villain, and I really enjoy playing as villains in video games. But ultimately, I've had some of the most fun in this game playing with Carnage, thanks to the sound design as well. Slashing through waves of basic enemies at a quick and satisfying rate, and just hearing this sound over and over again. It got annoying, but I felt like a serial killer placed inside of a symbiote. I just have to put Carnage in the S tier. Take this bronze medal, you homicidal maniac, you. Number 2. Thor. Man, Thor can do it all in this game. His striking is high and so is his body, and he starts out with low focus and teamwork, but his focus can be easily worked around thanks to the grand amount you get from upgrading his Divine Vigor ability. He can fly around with this cool looking model here, and he has might if you put some points into his Asgardian might ability. Thor is pretty strong when it comes to brawling in this game. His hammer hits like a truck. He's got an ability called Belt of Strength that, I'm not even going to say it, you guys know. His survivability is great thanks to his high body, which can be increased even higher because he needs that, right? Just go ahead and upgrade his godly endurance ability. Impervious body also gives you a percentage for damage resistance too, making Thor tough as nails against many of the tough foes you'll fell in the game. When it comes to Thor being at the number 2 spot above some of my favorite characters in this game, well, we gotta talk about another reason why he's this high up. It's his skills. Mjolnir Strike is like the dash moves I talked about with Psylocke and Carnage, and I just feel so much more powerful with this one. I don't know, something about Thor going head first with his hammer of death and despair just makes the skill feel even more powerful than it might actually be. And Mighty Swipe. Oh, Mighty Swipe. I can't believe I'm saying this, but this skill does too much damage. Like, at least give these enemies a chance. At least give this boss a chance. It's a quick swipe that can wipe out anything hit by it. And it's the move for me in this game. Like, the, with 2 E's. Thunder Smash might be one of Thor's least useful moves, but hey, it still provides some ragdolling when you hit enemies with it, and does sufficient enough damage to make it a viable option. And Lightning Rod is, well, broken as well. It acts like Human Torch's Flamethrower skill, or even Songbird's Shatter Scream. It's a continuous skill that dishes out some high DPS, like some of the highest in the game. It's a bit tough to aim at first, mainly because of how Thor jumps up in the air and faces the lightning rod down at an angle to hit the enemies below him, and the range of it is quite short. But once you get the hang of this, enemies and bosses alike won't stand a chance. It can also shock enemies, leaving them immobile for some time, but you might have not noticed that since this skill just drains health like it's nothing. I know what you weren't thinking after playing with Thor. Man, his power damage is lame and I need more of it. Well, sadly for you, he has an ability called Thunder Mastery that gives him a high percentage increase to his power damage. Stay away from this one if you don't want to make Thor busted. My favorite fusion with Thor has to be his Tornado fusion. It's unique to him and Storm in this game, so whenever I get the chance to do it, I definitely want to try. Man, Thor is just outstanding. He's got high brawling potential, he's got high survivability, he's got high skill damage output and usefulness. You really just can't go wrong with him. He's the best all-rounder in this game. He may be number 2, but he's not number 1, as that spot is reserved for number 1, Nanite Nick Fury. While his boss fight was very underwhelming to me, playing as Nanite Nick Fury is definitely not. He's easily worth the investment of beating the game just to play through Legendary Mode with him. He's a one-of-a-kind character. All of his stats are pretty high compared to others, and it makes sense as he's the reward for beating the game. He's strong body-wise and striking-wise, he's got health regen, he's got might and flight, and he's got high damaging and strong abilities, both for crowd control and single targeting. When it comes to his abilities, well, let's see. Resistance to the last damage type he got hit with. Well, you have that in Adaptive Defense. An all damage raw number increase? Well, Nanite Mastery has you covered. A high increase to his body and focus stats, despite already having high body and focus to begin with. Well, Nano Armor and Survival Instinct seal the deal here. And his skills, oh man. Lightning Bolt is a great ranged attack with viable enough damage to battle against some of the other ranged attacks in this game. It's a bit slow compared to those, however the damage from the hit is well worth it if you can get used to the speed of the projectile. Bioelectric Blast is a cool radial move that can ragdoll enemies near it, inflicting radioactive damage to them as well. It's got solid utility thanks to the knockback, and compared to other radial moves, the skill does a good amount of damage. Every rush skill in this game barely scrapes the surface of the damage and DPS you can do with Monstrous Rush. Oh, damage. Just look at this. It's easily the crown jewel skill in this game for me. It's so fun to use and to crash into enemies and violently knock them up as the cherry on top. Don't even get me started on using this to decimate a boss in their health bar. Instead of playing the knock up animation when you hit a boss, Nick just bumps into them, dealing the full damage. This can lead to you spamming X into a boss over and over again to shorten their runtime on your screen. The skill can be block cancelled too, and boy is this effective. You can cancel it at any point within the dash, and since it probably won't take up too much stamina, as it's a very stamina efficient move, your stamina will be back up to max in no time. Get the initial hit in on a regular enemy, block cancel quickly to skip this knockback animation, rinse and repeat, and well, that enemy is gone. That was quick. Plasma Volley is another top tier skill in this game, and arguably one of the best. Nick Fury summons forth Firestar by clapping his hands together above his head, leading to a volley of fireballs scurrying on out to deal some insanely high damage. The crowd control usage of this skill is so nice, but it's a treat to see this move also melt bosses in their health bars. When block canceling with this move, well, you sure get some results. It's already a very low stamina move for the stupidly high damage you get, but if you block cancel at any point when you see a fireball, or multiple, you can get yourself out of the long animation the skill has and watch chaos unfold. Nanite Nick Fury's got some fun guided fusions, as well as this one here where he continuously slams the ground with Ms. Marvel. Fun stuff all around. Nick Fury is really a one-of-a-kind character, and a very powerful one that is. He's an amazing all-rounder, and it makes sense as he's the reward for beating the game. Using him for your whole Legendary Mode playthrough makes this game a cakewalk. This may be a lame number one to some, and yeah, I guess I kind of agree. I kind of wanted to move someone like Thor or even Green Goblin up here. However, it's undeniable to me that Nanite Nick Fury is awesome. Go ahead and take this gold star. Nanite Nick Fury, you're my best character in Marvel Ultimate Alliance 2. I hope you guys enjoyed yet another character ranking. The Marvel Ultimate Alliance games have been my life the past few months, and I absolutely love these games to death and think they deserve all the coverage they can get. I also want to give a shout out to my little brother for letting me use his Xbox in his room to record the footage for this video. The Xbox One I recorded the first character ranking video on didn't like to run this game properly, so I really appreciate you, man. It took a lot of work to make this video, as well as a huge amount of physical demand. Yes, a huge amount, I'm sore everywhere. This is because I had to move my recording setup into my brother's room to record 10 seconds of footage whenever I forgot to record something minimal, like a stupid fusion move for Venom out of all things. So if you guys enjoyed and appreciate the work it took to make this video, leaving a like and possibly subscribing would mean a lot to me. Even if you don't, thank you for taking time out of your day to watch this video. Also, I'm going to try to get you guys involved on the next ranking video. You will get to choose which character ranking I'll do after my Marvel Ultimate Alliance retrospective. There are at least 4 other games I can do this for, the 2 X-Men Legends games, and even the 6th generation version of Marvel Ultimate Alliance 2, which is a completely different game in itself. I would put Marvel Ultimate Alliance 3 on the form that I'm going to have in the description, but I can't make a video over that yet as I don't have a Switch. So if you are hearing this and you're interested, let me know which character ranking you want by filling out the Google form down in the description. I'll end up doing all of them eventually, but this just decides which one I'll do after my next retrospective video. To stay up to date on which ranking video I'll do next, stay posted to my community post here on YouTube. I may ask for some opinions on certain characters from the certain game that you guys pick, and you guys may be featured in the next ranking video. This is Ace, and I hope you guys have a great rest of your day. As always, peace out.